Hello, friends. It's Eric and Arch Admin Susie and Hal. And we're chilling, the three of us. We're talking about this piece of paper I made. And I was saying how if you want to talk about legitimacy, and that's really what people are talking about when they deal with whether or not, when they're reading somebody one way or another. If you if you look at how people argue, you can learn a lot about their personality type because it'll tell you which kind of metric they evaluate your shit on. If they're saying, hey, you're being inconsistent with yourself, or this is inconsistent with that, then obviously they're evaluating, a straight TI metric. But they're not necessarily likely to make conclusions about your character or your moral or ethical nature based on that alone because they understand, a TI Dom is going to understand well that some people may simply actually not understand the TI shit, and some people may be fake understanding the TI shit or whatever, fake not understanding it. So that's where you come up to these top values of sorts. These are what you might call the yellow and the brown ones here that you can see on the screen if you are watching the video, but the other two in the room here are looking independently. You've got yellow, brown, yellow, brown, yellow, brown, yellow. Those are mechanisms. Authenticity is either a mechanism or a value, right? Authenticity is the value, the core thing that everybody's looking for to afford legitimacy on some level. It's the legitimizer. Transparency is a way that you indicate a desire to enable more authenticity, enable your audience to believe in more authenticity because you're hiding nothing. Hiding something is an indicator on a maybe like a SE level or an SI level. I'm not sure. That indicates wrongdoing. Transparency, therefore, suggests the other. It's one of the somebody's criterion that they go to first. Well, what is he look like? He's hiding something or not? Some people go to that criterion first. If they're trying to make a decision about an idea, even they may try to make a determination based on their read of the person. Honesty is a TI indication of authentic intent. It's a TE confirmation of a reliable causal link. So in other words, if there are things that seem doubtful and they turn out to be honest, and a person's honesty gets confirmed, or if there's things that you do maybe to test them to see if they're honest and it gets confirmed, well, those sort of things are checking against data, and they're going to reassure TI that a person they can reasonably extrapolate out a certain amount of honesty from observed data, provided provided it's consistent. And TE is going to say, oh, well, look, I see here that he said he's going to do this. He did this thing. It's done. He's a reliable causal link. I can rely on that in my TE constructions of things. Relatability is a necessary condition of authenticity, which is to say, to be seen as authentic, you have to be seen as relatable. Otherwise, you have nothing to be authentic about that matters to anybody. So, authenticity is going to require you to come across as a person that people could imagine themselves spending time with, sitting down, having a conversation with, and enjoying the person's company. That's where the whole charisma issue comes in, and likability, which is a tricky confluence of different things that I don't think anybody ever figures out, but it's obviously related to something. Presentation, you'll note here, is the manner in which a display. Let me make this wider so I can read it. Which displays emotional content is intended to be perceived. So the presentation is the manner in which it displays emotional content is intended to be perceived. So if I'm presenting, whoopee, I want you to interpret me as being happy or something. That's a presentation of an emotional display for the purpose of perception management. And perception, therefore, is the meaning to which it presented emotional content is rendered by the perceiver. So if you perceive my whoopee as actual happiness, then go, well, what just happened, Eric? When you were in the middle of that sentence, you said whoopee. Something exciting must have happened. I could see on your face that you were excited. And you probably wouldn't, because contextually you'll know enough to prioritize the fact that it was an example, first of all. And second of all, even if it were, the fact that I continued right past it would suggest that it's not worth your attention as a evaluatory metric or something like that. Awareness is what distinguishes that which is presented from that which is reflexive. So if when I came home and saw my dog's dead body, I started kind of wailing. It was very reflexive. It wasn't for presentational purposes. I genuinely felt that much anguish. And that would be I had some awareness, but it wasn't managing anything at all. And there are other circumstances in which you wouldn't have any awareness at all. Something took you totally by surprise and you were scared, startled. You're not going to be able to manage that at all. If somebody tells a funny joke and you burst out laughing without being able to control yourself, that's reflexive. You can't. That's not something you're managing. And so those aren't presentations. Those are reflexive displays. All right. So what are the displays tell us? Well, it depends what kind of type you are. If you're looking for, well, who's the most emotionally engaged in this, the most emotionally committed, or the most emotionally interested party is the least unbiased. So I'm going to side with the other person. This is an FE heavy, or perhaps some. I can imagine an FI construction, but I think it's mostly FE heavy. Like FE down would use this test to see if your TI is good because they don't have actual TI, so they just use this heuristic as a way of. I mean, they do have it, but it's weak. So you use this heuristic as a way of determining who's right and wrong. Likely, is who has the most emotional fervor, and the other person's more right. To them, that's prioritizing TI over FE. Bias is an FI test of correctness. Well, who has more to gain or who values something more in here? They're going to be the one who is less honest because they have more impersonal commitment to it. That's a TI authenticity test. Results a TE authenticity test. And we can think of other authenticity tests that people use to evaluate a person's intentions, arguments, whatever. People tend to use the same kind of heuristics across the board where they work well and where they work poorly, as is well evidenced by my dating fiascos. I try to use TI to understand this shit. I try to use TI to get the woman to pin down so I can know what's happening next and know how to argue next and stuff. Doesn't work at all, not one bit. Because why did I waste 45 years trying that shit? Or choosing not to try that shit because it was such a fiasco all the time? Because that was my go-to way of interacting with everything in the world. So if you are an FE Dom and you're like, well, that person's way more emotional, so that person must be right. That's the way you're dealing with that argument. It's the way you're dealing with a situation like, okay, oh, there's a conflict over here. This person's way more emotional. That's the person I need to focus on to calm down. That's a good situation to use that in. It makes perfect sense there. Or, oh, here's a situation where one person looks really excluded. I'm going to use FE to make sure that person's included. Lots of good ways to use it. Evaluating arguments is not one of them. So, same with me. Lots of good ways to use TI. Slaying the puss is not one of them. So, the end all of this conversation from my perspective, before I will ask Susie or if Hal's still here if he has any thoughts on it, is basically remember that when people are using the wrong evaluatory metric, that's exactly what's happening. It's not we agree to disagree because we can't see eye to eye. It's one of us is using the right metric and one of us is using the wrong. And for some things, there's one metric that's perfect. For a lot of things, a lot of metrics can be kind of smushed into making and give you some sense of things, but it's a matter of understanding where you're effective and where you're not, and adjusting enough to get results where you're not naturally using the right kind of manner of attention. Thoughts?
So, would authenticity be closely tied to uh, personal, the personal?
This is an F. These are ways in which T's and F's evaluate an F issue. It's fundamentally an F issue. That is to say, I want to know that this person is authentic, that this person is legitimate, they're not trying to pull shit over on me, that they're not trying to manipulate me, that they're not faking who they are, and I'll find out later they're not really like that their displays of emotions are real, they're not intended to move me just for the sake of moving me. that I can count on what they say to be honest, which means different things to different people, but it's still a character evaluation. It's not really an argumentary evaluation.
I
So
see.
that's why I'm saying these are F level only. FX, FE, and FI level uh, processing for different types.
I'm thinking it could also apply to TI and TE. You're authentic because what you're saying is consistent with your previous statements and your thoughts.
I
And
agree with you, I agree completely. But what I'm saying is that when we turn it into the word authentic, you're taking the you're taking the status away from stuff that's being said or argued or done and putting it onto the person themselves. You're saying, okay, I like this guy. He seems authentic to me. What does that mean? Well, it means something different to different types, but it's still fundamentally saying he works on an F level.
mm-hmm.
So it matters a lot more to an INTP for F reasons that I be TI sound. I still have to be F sound, but the TI soundness gives me F points because they're so not really
Mm-hmm.
very F-y, you know?
Interesting. Yes. For the Delta Quadrant, where we have Fi and Te, I believe a person if when we evaluate a person's authenticity, it's definitely based on his Fi. If his Fi is just and pure and are actually his intentions, then we will take Te actions to fulfill those goals.
Okay, but how do you evaluate my FI?
Hmm. What do you mean, Eric? I don't.
Well,
Mm-hmm,
you said you guys are making an evaluation about somebody whether you like them or whether you think they're good or bad, right?
mm-hmm,
And you're saying you're
mm-hmm.
basing it on the
Oh, I
authenticity
see.
of their FI. How do you know? How do you
Mm-hmm.
judge somebody's FI?
It
Are any of these things part of how you judge it?
it's related to how our social group functions. Um, in the Delta Quadrant, so we use Fi and Te. Um, when we work together with Te, we choose who we work with based on shared intentions and goals in life, based on Fi.
Yeah, but the evaluation of FI is that not still TI?
No, it's we evaluate it directly. We ask them, or we observe them and see what their intentions are, what their goals are, what their ethics are, what their FI is essentially, because it's
Yeah,
very
but
stable
how
for
do
each
you
person.
draw conclusions from that?
It's we see if their ethical beliefs are congruent with ours, so that we can, and if they are, then we'll be more willing to work with that person. By work, I mean TE.
Do you mean like if you get same FI and have same values?
Exactly. Then we'll do the same things and achieve the same goals. And the whole society, this whole social group is built upon that. So it's important to accurately evaluate someone's FI
Okay, so it's
in
about
service of
having,
TE.
yeah, but same FI facts in a way.
So it doesn't matter. Here's why. Let me chime in. I'm thinking what you're basically getting at is it doesn't matter that we reach the same values through opposite channels. The fact that my value doesn't actually reflect FI, it actually reflects a variety of things that are not FI. It reflects a lot of FE and it reflects a lot of TI and it reflects a lot of spiking, basically, of knowing what I could get called out on and how to avoid getting called out on shit. So it's like that may display as values that are consistent with your own, but if you would probably, if you were to actually feel me on the etymology of it, the path by which we got there, then I think you'd probably be like, well, that's not an authentic reason to have those values.
Hmm. I think it's just when FI users interact with TI users, we misinterpret how it's because the other group have a different value system, a different way of I don't know functioning
Eating
within their
pudding.
social group, with operating within their social group. So we mistaken their actions for inconsistent FI. But really, it's that they don't care about FI at all. They care about TI, and their society, their group of people is built upon TI and FE.
Okay, so
So within the alpha group, it's about um, being consistent with your ideas, sharing your ideas, creating new ideas. And then when if you have good TI, good ideas, then you gain more FE approval from the group, and people like you. And that's like how it works within your
I
society. For
tell you,
us,
dude,
it's different.
you got a lot of. I right off the bat and continue to be very impressed with your insightfulness, which typically means impressed with how your shit fits into my existing TI understanding of this stuff. And it doesn't contradict shit, and it resonates with both the data and with the model or the taxonomy or whatever you want to call it. So
Hmm.
I think you're right that that has generated good FE from me to you, like a good positive, or actually good FI
Thanks, Eric.
of you. I FI value you because of that.
I'm okay with the FE as well.
I mean, obviously I try to FE everybody. Though. I'm always trying to schmooze everybody because it's the childlike function for me.
Well, thanks, Eric. The feelings goes both ways.
Thanks, Hal. It made me super happy to see you doing all those drugs the other day too.
No, that wasn't fun.
Was
The
it?
withdrawal was bad.
Uh, I don't know.
But are you recording this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Should I not have mentioned the drugs at the end or what?
Well, you just criminalized me, but
Hey, no,
that's
I'm
okay.
not. What I'm talking about is it made me happy to see you take those Tylenols and those aspirins because you had such a bad headache. I was
Yeah,
feeling worried
too
about you.
much Tylenol.
I was worried about you, and I'm glad to see that you're feeling better. That's all I was getting at, Susie. So thank you for reminding me that sometimes my obviously well-intentioned and simple words can be misinterpreted as representing something else, something darker, something more gritty, something more from the streets. Anyway, thanks for watching Talking to Film People. Any other comments on stuff about stuffs?
No.
No? Okay, thanks. And don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.